Driving through the Black Hills of the United States provides some stunning rock formations that are unlike anywhere else in the world. Yet amongst all these amazing buttes, one rises above all others: Devil's Tower. Devil's Tower is a wildly popular tourist destination, attracting over 500,000 visitors from around the world each year. Of those are about 5,000 rock climbers. The Butte's distinct cracks and surfaces make it a unique opportunity for climbers. But rock climbers aren't the only ones who revere the tower. The tower has been a holy place for American Indians for over 10,000 years. Devil's Tower's popularity for rock climbing, and the tower's name itself, has been a major grievance amongst the Indigenous community.
So she has many names. We do not recognize the name Devil's Tower at all because it does not honor her.
The grievances between American Indian groups and rock climbers would eventually get the attention of the US Supreme Court. While the Supreme Court did provide guidance on how to share Devil's Tower, the issue is far from resolved. This is the story of Devil's Tower. Before colonization, the Black Hills offered some of the best hunting grounds for buffalo. As such, many tribes would fight over the territory. It is estimated that over 20 tribes would control the Black Hills throughout history, and nearly all considered the Great Tower to be holy. Yet the tower's relationship is only well known with about 6 tribes. Most have a legend that the Butte was created by the Great Spirit. While the origin story of the Butte varies, most involve a group of children fleeing a giant bear. The children prayed to the Great Spirit for rescue from this giant bear. In response to their prayers, the Great Spirit created the Butte to protect the children. Some iterations of the story add that the children went on to form the Pleiades star cluster. Due to these origin stories, nearly every tribe named the Butte after the bear, while all these tribes consider the Butte a holy site. That is especially true for the Cheyenne. Bear's Lodge, as it is called by the Cheyenne, is the burial place of their prophet, Sweet Medicine Standing. During his final days at Bear's Lodge, Sweet Medicine Standing foresaw the arrival of European colonizers. He predicted that the arrival of horses and guns would replace the old ways of living. The Cheyenne built a sanctuary honoring Sweet Medicine Standing within a secret cave of the Butte. Sweet Medicine Standing's prophecy would come true, as the Cheyenne would be chased out by the Lakota. The Lakotas became masters of horse riding, and were able to build an empire that included the Black Hills. The first colonizer to set eyes on the tower was probably Lieutenant G.K. Warren in 1857. However, Warren was only able to view the tower from a great distance, due to an agreement with the Lakota. As Warren was on an expeditionary assignment, he needed to name the Great Butte. He chose Bear's Lodge, an English translation of the Lakota name for the Butte, Mato Tipi. Few colonizers would learn of the Butte's existence. As the United States was about to be engulfed in civil war, it would be another 20 years until White Eye saw the towering Butte. After rumors of gold in the West excited colonizers, the US government wanted to purchase the Black Hills from the Lakota. First, they decided to send land surveyors to get reliable and accurate information about the land. The expedition would be led by Colonel Dodge, who arrived in the Black Hills in 1875, writing, "Its summit is inaccessible to anything without wings. It is so entirely inaccessible that the energetic explorer can only look upward in despair of ever planting his feet on top." Dodge would again ask the Lakota what they call the tower, and went on to make a major translation error. In the Lakota language, the name for black bear is Wa'ankis Cha, and the name for bad spirit is Wakanshi Cha. As such, Dodge believed that the prior expedition were the ones who made the mistake, and he would rename the tower. He originally named it Bad God's Tower, but would further modify it to Devil's Tower. The United States would acquire the Black Hills, albeit through malicious means. In a future 1980 Supreme Court case, the court declared, "A more ripe and rank case of dishonorable dealings will never, in all probability, be found in our history." But that is a story for another time. Colonel Dodge popularized the natural beauty of the seized territory in a book aptly named The Black Hills. It became a bestseller, and the name of the Great Butte would now be known as Devil's Tower. The United States was entering a phase where the preservation of natural wonders was popularized, and Devil's Tower became protected land. Still, the tower had little touristic value due to transportation technology at the time. While some railroad riders could view the tower on certain routes, visiting the tower would often require multiple days of horse riding. The tower would become popular amongst colonizers who moved nearby via the Homestead Act, but it would remain inaccessible to most Americans who lived far away. 2 local ranchers would be the first to summit the tower, after they built a stake ladder in 1893. Decades later, the first technical climb was completed in 1937, with an expedition led by Fritz Wiesner. In 1941, the tower did get national attention, as parachutist George Hopkins became stranded on top of it after a publicity stunt went terribly wrong.
There he goes. He served with the RAF and was at Dunkirk. Now, finding life at home too dull and slow, he maroons himself on this rock. The job was neatly done, all right. We can see his parachute and George himself as we fly around the top with the camera, but he can't get down. They had to drop food with a map to show him the best method of descent, but he never got more than 100 feet down, and then there was still another 1,100 to go. After being marooned for almost a week, rescuers, led by a famous climber, got him down. He'd had a most unpleasant time, but maybe he wanted publicity. He certainly got that.
The whole ordeal created a media frenzy, and about 7,000 visitors would go to the park to watch the rescue unfold. This may have made Devil's Tower a national icon, but the United States entered World War II just months later. Much of the country was too occupied with the war to make any travel plans to Wyoming. In the 1960s, a great deal of money was spent to make Devil's Tower National Monument more friendly to outsiders. President Kennedy granted more money for the National Monument. Trees were cleared, paths were paved, campsites were built, and rattlesnakes were shot, all to make the park more friendly to travelers. These improvements, along with the birth of American car culture, increased the popularity of Devil's Tower. Joe Alves, a Hollywood location scout, would make Devil's Tower universally known. The scout was working with a young up-and-coming director, Steven Spielberg. The scout showed Devil's Tower to Spielberg, and the director decided it was the perfect location for his next film, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. In the film, Devil's Tower plays a critical role in the plot. Close Encounters went on to be wildly successful, and now just about everyone in America wanted to visit Devil's Tower. The number of visitors to the park nearly doubled the year after the movie was released. The park's popularity would continue to climb in the 1980s. It had more than double the number of visitors than the prior decade. It also had nearly 4 times the amount of rock climbers, as the sport was growing in popularity. Around the same time, more American Indians were publicly participating in their religion. This was in part to the American Religious Freedom Act of 1978, which ensured that Native Americans could freely exercise their religious freedom at sacred sites, including the tower. Prior to this act, there was a ban on religious ceremonies being performed at Devil's Tower. In September 1981, about 60 people from the Lakota tribe went to the tower for religious purposes. While there, a local man fired a gun at the worshippers. Despite the shooting, the Lakota were undeterred and would continue to worship at the tower year after year. Gerald Onefeather, chairman of the Ogallala sub-tribe within the Lakota, would start to open a dialogue with the National Park Service. He explained that the tower is a sacred place not only to the Lakota, but to several other tribes as well. Onefeather would lead a renaissance of summer solstice rituals that took place at the tower. Most of these rituals are kept private from outsiders, but some practices involve tying prayer flags to the trees. Interest between the rock climbers and the Lakota would clash in the coming years. More Lakotas were participating in the summer solstice festivals. Just as rock climbing continued to grow in popularity, the act of rock climbing creates a tremendous amount of noise that would echo off of the tower, interrupting religious ceremonies on the ground. Not to mention that the act of rock climbing in itself is seen as an act of desecration. Avril Looking Horse, a Lakota spiritual guide, said, "Climbers make lots of noise, and come near our people when they are praying. By doing this, they disturb our efforts to obtain spiritual guidance. When climbers hammer objects into the Bute, it is like they are pounding stakes into our bodies. The act of climbing the tower has been compared to using the Wailing Wall or St. Peter's Basilica as a rock climbing destination. The National Park Service was asked to mediate in an attempt to balance the needs of the tourism industry and the dignity of the Lakota people. The National Park Service attempted to implement a compromise. During the month of June, all commercial rock climbing would be banned, in addition to a voluntary ban for private climbing. This ban did not sit well with rock climbing guides. June is one of the ideal times to climb the tower due to the weather. One touring company by the name of Tower Guides decided to sue the National Park Service, and they would be joined by 4 other plaintiffs. Tower Guides would be aided by the Mountain States Legal Foundation in the case. They argued that the ban was a violation of their First Amendment rights. By stopping commercial tours on Devil's Tower to accommodate the religious practice of the Lakota, the National Park Service was favoring one religion over others. The National Park Service flinched at the lawsuit and made the entire ban voluntary regardless if it was commercial climbing or private climbing. Nonetheless, the plaintiffs continued with the lawsuit and wanted the voluntary ban removed completely. The Indian Law Resource Center would represent tribal and spiritual leaders as part of the defense. The court ruled that the rock climbers had no case, since the ban was voluntary. The plaintiffs appealed, but the appellate court agreed with their original ruling. The plaintiffs appealed again, but the Supreme Court denied to hear the plaintiffs' appeal, affirming the decision that the voluntary ban was constitutional. The voluntary June ban became law of the land. However, there is one big flaw with the voluntary ban. It is in fact voluntary. Rock climbing during June did decrease by about 80%, but a few hundred climbers continue to ascend Devil's Tower during worship. Rock climbing advocacy groups and publications have encouraged fellow climbers to honor the voluntary ban. Nonetheless, climbers continue to ascend the tower in June. One of those is Frank Sanders, who is a climber and tour operator. In an interview with Wyoming Public Media, he was quoted as saying,
"The tower's not for one person, or one group of people, or 1 month, or 1 day, or 1 week. It's for all of us. I cannot help but reflect that my time on the reservation, and I wish they would come to the tower. But the truth is, the natives, as far as I can see, that visit our token, they are few."
For the time being, it seems that the voluntary ban will be the law of the land. There has been vocalization for a complete year-round ban, but it appears that the Park Service won't be making changes anytime soon. Even efforts to rename the tower to its original Indigenous name have been derailed. In the past few decades, the National Congress of American Indians has made repeated efforts for the tower to be restored to its original name. In 2014, they stated, "The Devil's Tower name is offensive, insulting, and disparaging because it equates Indigenous culture and faith traditions practiced at this site to devil worship. In essence, equating Indigenous people to devils." Any effort to change the name of the tower has been halted by senators and representatives from Wyoming. In February of 2021, Senator Cynthia Loomis stated, "Devil's Tower is well known across the country and around the world as a historical and cultural landmark, and it is critical that we maintain its legacy and its name." Former Representative Barbara Cuban cited more economic reasons, stating that a name change will harm the tourist trade and bring economic hardship to the area. In any case, the decision of what the monument should be named ultimately rests with the United States Department of the Interior, which is currently under the leadership of Secretary Deb Haaland, who happens to be a recognized member of the Laguna Pueblo tribe. At the time of this video, Secretary Haaland has made no comment about the name of Devil's Tower or its use by rock climbers. But I want to know what you think. Should Devil's Tower be renamed? Do you think rock climbing on the tower should be banned year-round? Or at least during the month of June? Let me know in the comments. A big thank you to the patrons who fund this channel, including VIP patrons Marnie and Steven.